In this episode of Ask the Doc, I got a great question from somebody that's been dealing with shoulder bursitis, had multiple injections, and the pain is getting a lot worse. Well, what's up, everybody? Dr. Matt Maggio here, creator of the Peak Method and founder of the Soft Tissue Revolution, and we are on a hell of a mission to make chronic injuries obsolete by helping those that are injured and in pain get properly educated and informed on their injuries and access to quality hands-on soft tissue treatment so they can avoid bigger problems down the road like pain pills, injections, and surgeries, which only make things worse. I got a great question from the internet, specifically on Instagram, and let me read it. It said, I got 2 rounds of injections for my shoulder bursitis and felt great for 2 months. Pain started coming back and is now worse than before. I got another injection last week and it made it feel worse. Now I'm worried something major is wrong and my only option is surgery, which I definitely don't want. Any insights on what I should do? Thank you so much for sending that question in, and sorry to hear you're dealing with this, but this kind of ends up being status quo in the nightmare that I call the current medical system. Now, whenever you hear a word like bursitis, it's just code word for they really don't have an idea of what's going on. Bursitis by itself is specifically this idea that there's inflammation in the shoulder. So the question we must ask and answer is, why is that inflammation there in the first place? And their first step is actually to get rid of the inflammation instead of figuring out why the inflammation happens. Because here's something really amazing about the human body from an evolutionary standpoint. Pain is in there to let you know that something is wrong. And so many treatments and so many just practitioners out there, all they want to do is get rid of your pain, and they don't get to the root cause of what's going on, and they wonder why things get worse and worse. I have a reputation of maybe being too blunt, a little too honest, and I like to use some foul language every once in a while, but here's how I feel about injections just straight up. Injections are garbage, and so is the doctor that gave them to you. Well, now you know how I feel about injections, but let's just talk about pain a little bit more. I say pain in the human body is kind of like the check engine light of your car. It lets you know that something is wrong, and usually you shouldn't ignore that. So what happens when you get one of these injections is it basically goes in and blocks all the pain but doesn't fix anything. It would be the same thing as if you went in with your car and your check engine light came on, you went to the mechanic and were like, hey, just turn that off and I'm gonna ignore the real problem. You drive along on your car even more, and then your engine blows up and you wonder what happened. Well, your car tried to tell you something was wrong and your body tried to tell you something was wrong as well. So don't ignore pain. Pain lets us know that you're either doing too much, there's an injury there, and you must listen to what your body is telling you. I hear these all the time. People are like, yeah, I got an injection. I was good for a couple months. I felt great. I was doing everything. There's this idea in your body called symptom threshold. And basically, if you notice every little thing that was going on with your body, you would go crazy. So your body kind of picks an idea of what it wants to pay attention to. And what happens over time is you start stacking some stuff up. There might be some problems in the tissue. You might have some scar tissue in the muscles and the ligaments. Then what happens is that tissue gets inflamed and it gets bigger and bigger. Then more tissue gets inflamed and you get above threshold. Now you have that pain and your body's like, hey, I don't like what you're doing. And then the pain is actually a nuisance, and then eventually it gets worse and worse and worse. And then you end up making an appointment at a doctor and you're like, I have pain. And the doctor goes, okay, well, we'll take care of your pain and get rid of it. So this is what happened with this person. You got the injection, and what it did was it actually just raised your threshold a little bit. So you were here, now you're here, so you don't notice it as much, but you still have all those other problems down there. Your tendons are getting worse, your joints are getting worse, your cartilage is getting worse, your tissues are getting worse, inflammation is getting worse and worse, but you don't know there's a problem because that pain isn't kicking in because you shut off your check engine light, and that's why things start getting worse. And you think, oh, well, I feel better, so that must be the criteria that I'm doing good. And that's where it's really dangerous. Any treatment that focuses only on symptoms but doesn't improve your function is actually really dangerous. And this happens a lot as we go. Why is it worse? Why did it feel worse? You know, you felt really good for those 2 months. You're like, I feel great. You got the next round, it started feeling worse. They've actually shown in studies that multiple injections actually cause more degeneration and wear and tear in the cartilage and the joint and the tendon. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theory guy here, but I think a lot of times these surgeons are doing it on purpose on the front end to justify a more expensive surgery down the back end because they know it's not actually going to work. I know that sounds messed up, but at the end of the day, the medical system is about making money and making profit, and that's what they're doing. And there's no cure in actually fixing you and solving your problem. They need to make it worse so they can justify it to the insurance company on the back end that you need a $20,000 rotator cuff or labrum repair surgery that actually isn't going to do anything and will make you worse. So a big question that I'm always asking in my clinic and all the practitioners trained in my method, the PEAK method, is was there trauma or was there not in your injury? And a lot of times when there's trauma, an injection can help settle it down a little bit, but when you don't have any trauma, you just have that repetitive overuse type of thing, usually what I find is the area that's complaining and doing the extra work is the one that's actually not the problem. It's coming from somewhere else. Too much of musculoskeletal care focuses on the effect instead of the cause of the treatment, and that's what this person ran into. Think of their shoulder as like their thumb stuck inside a car door, and then all the tissue around there is the car door that got in there. And what happens is you can't expect your thumb to heal up until you remove that door. And that's what happens with these injections, is it gives you a little space in there and it makes you feel like you're better, but that problem becomes even worse, and then eventually that door just slams right down on it. Couple take homes from here. Injections are not a treatment. They're actually dangerous because they make you feel better, but they didn't fix anything. Really focusing on the idea that these can make things worse, and know that it's not a treatment. A treatment has 3 criteria. It should be safe, effective, and durable. Injections don't meet any of that. They're not safe because they actually make the problem worse. Effective, yeah, they make you feel better, but they didn't fix anything. And durable, they're not lasting long-term in there. So in closing, sorry to hear you're dealing with this, but this is what happens in the current medical for-profit model. What you need to do instead is get to a practitioner that can properly evaluate you, diagnose you, and give you a tissue-specific problem, not just bursitis, and wants to shoot you full of cortisone and injections that are only going to make you worse. Understand the role of pain. Pain is your body telling you that something is wrong, and you need to pay attention to it, because the longer you ignore it, the worse that pain is going to be down the road. And lastly, get yourself to a PEAK method trained practitioner. They are the best in the world at finding and fixing problems that other doctors and other practitioners can't. And you can get on the path to actually getting this problem fixed without having to resort to pain pills, injections, and surgeries, which only make things worse. Appreciate you guys watching. If you like the video, give it a comment, a like, a share. If you got any questions specifically you want me to cover, send them in. We're always here to help, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.